Hey guys, I had a few thoughts left hanging after Music is Not a Meritocracy video, and I figured I'd like to explore the subject a little bit further. It starts with, if you have a message, how do you send it? Today, you speak, shout, make a phone call, write about it, type about it, put it on a billboard, send it over the radio, put it on TV, film, or put it on YouTube, tweet, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. You get the idea. It is not hard to put it out there. But let's go back for a minute to when it was just speak and shout. This would be pre-3200 BC during the roaring Mesopotamia days when spears weren't sliced pickles and clubs were how you got women, not where you met them. Around that time, we also had pictures, which gave us the world's first art critics. Later, we got writing for only a select few who decided that the Earth was flat and was circled by the universe. Later, we got the printing press, which brought literacy to the masses. And shortly thereafter, we got the Spanish Inquisition, brought to you by the same center of the universe assholes when people started poking holes in their stories. In regards to music, there really wasn't an industry. Singing was about storytelling. For hand-to-mouth donations, and success was dependent on remaining in the good graces of a benefactor, like a king or the church. After we got radio in 1890, it made New York shit its pants in 1938, and then Ecuador do the same thing in 1949 with broadcasts of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. 7 people were killed during the riots in Ecuador. The point being, the power within music hadn't been realized yet, but that was soon going to change. So with the preliminaries out of the way, what the fuck does this all have to do with music? Well, with radio in full swing and now film and TV jumping on board, it was the music industry that gifted the world with a string of shitty Elvis movies, put the Beatles into living rooms, and gave us MTV, which didn't die off until the late 90s. During this time, the music industry exploded and was sending out agents to local bars to actively find, bribe, cajole, and convince talent that they needed the industry. It had found a purpose outside of booking shows, and they used it to convince talent that they'd fail without them. Just snort this line of cocaine and sign here, please. You can trust me. By 1990, the music industry was drunk with power, influence, and money. Elvis had spread his legs quicker than the nunnery could close them. The Beatles gave peace a chance while getting everyone to grow their hair out. Black Sabbath gave voice to disaffected youth, and just before heroin began fucking everything up, we had punk. The industry had been locking down talent for decades, but those artists weren't cheap, and aggressively pushing them to sign away everything was hard and inconsistent. It had experimented with manufacturing bands like the Monkees and the Sex Pistols, but it was Milli Vanilli in 1989 that truly pioneered the practice, because they didn't even sing their own songs, they just danced and lip-synced, and they still got a Grammy out of it. Not just style over substance, style only. With Milli Vanilli, the music industry was paying some unknowns a few scraps to sing for a day, a few dancers to dance every so often, and then they raked in all of the revenue from sales, licensing, and royalties. Prince is probably the best example of the fight against the domination of the industry. Following huge arguments with his label, he changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol in protest of a shitty contract. Here's my record, try to sell this, you assholes. He considered most recording contracts indentured servitude and even said, I would tell any young artist, don't sign. Then came the internet and cheap technology. A studio in your room, YouTube to showcase your music while earning a paycheck, Patreon to give voice to both your ideas and your fanbase, and DistroKid to distribute it all. These have made the existing music industry largely irrelevant. The industry has been reduced to promoting again, and while it seemed like they matter, they really don't. This is how the traditional system worked. Labels would give you an advance on your record. They'd give you tens of thousands of dollars, and with that, you had to live off that money and finance the production of your album. Interesting side note, many artists didn't realize that the government saw that money as taxable income before they blew it all, causing them yet even more grief. Now, the only time you'd see money from sales is if you paid off that advance first. But since you'd only get roughly 10% of an album's sticker price, and that had to go towards paying off your advance, it doesn't take a genius to see why most advances were never paid off, and artists never saw a fucking penny of their sales. And don't forget, while the artist was scraping by on ramen, the label was getting 90% of the sales. The history of rock and roll is littered with artists who've sold millions and are broke. Now, I got this next bit of info secondhand, so I could be wrong, but it does sound entirely plausible. Steve Vai, genius guitar player that he is, said that the most money he ever made off any of his records was his independent release, Flexible. Here you've got a guy who played with David Lee Roth and Whitesnake, two of the biggest acts of the 80s, and the most money he made was off his own little indie record. I heard that story back in the end of the 90s. Not sure how he's doing these days with his releases. One can only hope he's doing better. So today that traditional system still exists, but people just aren't buying records anymore. Now the labels want a piece of your merch, your ticket sales, you name it. Any way they can get money out of you, they will take it, because they are still selling the story that they're needed. And that's just not true. Today, you as an artist can write, produce, distribute, and after a minimal amount of success, even finance large-scale productions over the web. As mentioned in the previous meritocracy video, it's all about the music again, combined with an equal amount of presentation. I look at my friends in Rest Repose. They've done very well with their own independent release. They even cracked the top 10 on iTunes and even did their own tour last summer. And in rebuttal, I always hear the same thing, but Glenn, those guys are huge YouTubers. Well, duh. Yes, they are. But you gotta ask yourself, what's stopping you from doing the same thing? Why would you sign with a label when you can make more money on your own? Everyone's got access to YouTube, so stop with the excuses and get busy. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this episode. If you like the content, please support the channel either at my SMG shop or through my Patreon. If you want to see more, hit one of the playlists. Thanks for watching. I'm out of here.